Hi everyone, the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Just, I'll just give you three last things, it's a promise. So, there are these few facts I think one must know. They say that more than 1 lakh shloks make up the Mahabharata. Who was the genius? And that too a tireless one. Who composed them? And how long did it take him? Actually, what we know today as the Mahabharata started off as a much shorter story called Jaya, which was just about 24,000 shloks long. These shlokas, which contain the core of the Mahabharata story and include the Bhagavad Gita, are believed to have been composed by a sage called Vyasa. He's the major character in the story. According to legend, Vyas dictated these shlokas to Ganesha, who agreed to be the scribe and write them all down on the condition that Vyas did not pause anywhere in his dictation. Vyas agreed, but on the counter condition that Ganesha would write a shlok down only after he had understood it. The deal was sealed, but a pen could not be found. Impatient, Ganesha broke off one of his tusks. He actually became Ekdanta after that, the one-tusked one, and used it to speedily record Jaya on palm leaves. That's the ancient one version on papyrus. But Jaya was never narrated to anyone by Vyasa himself. Legend has it that it was narrated by the sage Vaishampayana, a disciple of Vyasa, to King Janamejaya, the great grandson of Arjuna, the Pandav, just before he began a massive sacrifice to destroy every last snake and serpent in the world. This version of the epic, which included a conversation between Vaishampayana and Janamejaya, was called Bharata. Many years later, and with several voluminous editions, Jaya was narrated once again by a bard or a wandering, you could say a storyteller, called Ugrashrava Soti, to a group of sages just before they started a long sacrifice, this time for a worthier, more politically correct cause, world peace. It is this new, improved 4 times the size of the original version of the Jaya that we know today as the Mahabharata. As you have probably noticed, Ugrashrava Soti's version was narrated, not written down. This was generally the way information and stories, even those that were 1.8 million words long, were passed on in the olden days. Ancient Indians, had insane memory power. The first written version, with who knows how many more additions and deletions that we know, dates back only to the 4th century CE, more than 1600 years ago. What makes the Mahabharata more interesting is the belief that it isn't a story that Vyas made up entirely in his head. It is said to be a mix of fact and fiction, a story set against actual historical events that occurred somewhere around the 8th century BCE, or a lot earlier, or a little later. Well, no one is quite sure. Now, let's move on to Gita. We are all curious. Was the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna strictly private? Or did anyone else get to eavesdrop on it? You see, actually 2 people other than the 2 having the conversation got to hear it too. The interesting part was that these 2 weren't even on the battlefield at Kurukshetra. They were actually far away in the throne room of the palace of Hastinapur, to be precise. How did people so far away hear a conversation that even people on the battlefield around them didn't hear? Here's how. On the eve of the Kurukshetra war, King Dhritarashtra was not a happy man. He was bowed down by sorrow at the destruction he knew the war would wreak. He was full of fear that his sons would never return home. He was consumed by guilt that his love for his children had made him so weak that he had neglected his kingly duties and allowed all kinds of terrible injustices to happen right under his nose. Sick at heart, he refused to travel to the battlefield to witness the war. However, not knowing what was happening there was too much to bear. Now enter Sanjay, the king's charioteer, who had been blessed by sage Vyasa with the gift of telescopic vision and long-distance hearing, besides the gift of being able to see both the past and the future. Sitting beside the nervous king in Hastinapur, Sanjay saw and heard everything that was happening on the faraway battlefield as clearly as it is, as if it were happening before his very eyes. He began to describe in real time every teensy-weensy detail of the battle to King Dhritarashtra. And that was how Sanjay got to listen in on the conversation second hand, and King Dhritarashtra got to hear it too, third hand. And well, now for the one very last formality, the Gita prayer. Traditionally, before you actually start reading the Gita, you are supposed to send a bunch of prayers up to the Mahabharata, to its author Vyas, to the Gita itself, and to Krishna, asking for their blessings to help you understand and appreciate his wisdom. It is a 9-verse prayer, but it is the 4th verse which explains the importance of the Gita, which is the most quoted. It just wouldn't do to jump to chapter 1 without at least a basic understanding of this shlok. So let's get it. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandan Partho Vatsas Sudhir Bhoktam Dugdam Gita Mritam Mahata. I'll repeat once more. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandan Partho Vatsam Sudhir Bhoktam Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahata. If all the Upanishads, Upanishads are a collection of some of India's oldest religious texts, which are believed to be revelations. So this shloka, you would say, means if all the Upanishads were cows, Krishna is the divine milkman who squeezes their goodness out. Arjun, who gets first shot at the distilled wisdom of the ages, is the calf. The wise and the pure then get to drink this milk, this blessed immortal nectar, that is the Gita. Got it?